So most remember again, we're speaking about the need to be with simcha, the need to find happiness, and the need to find joy, even in the midst of compromised circumstances. And in fact, the only way to advance one's life is to find simcha in the midst of their current reality, even if the current reality is not exactly where it is or what it is that I want to be. So when a person has problems, he wants to change things in his life. Let's say someone has a job and he doesn't like his job. Aren't you looking for additional song?
I'm looking for the page.
Oh, Tzadik test. I'm sorry. So when a person, for example, a person has a job and he doesn't like it. It's very profound. Or his apartment is very small. Right? He doesn't like his house. So I want a better job. I'm sorry. I want a better house. Sounds like I want a better house. I want a better job. I want a better everything. Here's the operative piece. Right now, I don't have the opportunity to change my circumstances. Meaning, where I'm holding right now is I know that I want a different job, but I can't change it right now. I know that I want a different house, but I can't change it right now. Sometimes in life, you know what you want, but you can't have it this second. So what happens? Simin, and this is actually a very profound statement. Simin shezeh ritzon Hashem shekach yimel atam. This is a simin. This is a sign. Ultimately, again, that it is the Ratzon Hashem, it is the will of God, that this is how things should be right now. In other words, what the Mechaber is saying over here is the following, that if there's something that I want in life, and assuming that it's legitimate, it's okay, it's normal, but the circumstances are such that I have it now. I'm not going to have it now. I want a different job. But at the end of the day, there's nothing available right now, meaning, or there are other life realities that are tethering me in this place right now that are not going to change in the foreseeable future. So I know what I want, but I can't get there because of present realities. Says the Mechaber, it's important to understand that is a manifestation of divine will. That means that the will of the Ribbono Shel Olam is that I need to be where I am right now. Shekach yeh le'is ata. I need to be where I am right now. It will say in situations like that, it will say in situations like that, I have to be mavatal my ratzon. I have to go ahead and negate my will before the will of God, accept the will of God with happiness, and to know that these circumstances are for my best. The Ribbono Shel Olam wants me to be where I am right now. Now again, of course, should I daven for things to change? Of course I should. Should I actively pursue things in order to get them to change? Of course I should. I find this to be so amazing because we all have situations like this in life where I know my current circumstance is this, is X. I know I want it to change. And I know that it should change. I know that it has to change. But again, I want to be very careful with these words. Right now, it can't change. Now, what's the definition of it can't change? It can't change means I can't do anything right now to fix this. Right now, this is that's why the job example is a good one. I might know that I want a different job. But at the end of the day, it could just very well be that in the field that I'm in, what I'm looking for, the geography, there's just nothing there. It's not that I'm not trying, I'm trying. There are just no options for me right now. So what do you do when you know that you want life change, but that life change that you want is not available to you right now? The Mechaber says, understand the fact that life change is not available. That is a sign that it is the Ratzon Hashem, it is the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wants you in this current state for now. This is where he wants you. If there's no way out, this is exactly where he wants you. Now, what do you do with that? So the Mechaber says, you accept it b'simcha. You accept, that's step number one. Therefore, accept where you are, b'simcha, recognizing that you are where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to be. He says, however, of course, don't stop trying to make the necessary changes you want to change. So obviously, put in your hishtadlus. Dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a change in circumstances. That a person has to set aside time each and every day, depending on the person, depending on the circumstance, to go ahead and request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu the change that I want. Listen to how profound this is. So she set aside time every day to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately again, please help me affect change in my life. Do that for some time during the day. Ushar hayom yerak b'simcha. Understand? So daven for change, actively daven. You can even cry for change for some part of the day. The rest of the day, accept your circumstances b'simcha. The rest they recognize that where you are is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you and needs you to be. You want to advance yourself? Great. You should. We should all do that. But right now, before that happens, I have to figure out how to accept my circumstances b'simcha, because we'll say it all comes back to the same idea. Because it's only if you accept your current circumstances b'simcha that you have the ability to maximize them and to accomplish things. And I will say there are some people in life who always, I'll call for lack of like, kick the can of accomplishment down the road. There's so much I want to do, so much I want to accomplish. I can't do it now. I can't do it in these circumstances because these are not the right circumstances. And we all know that people like that will just, and of course it's never me, it's just people like that, right? Those you people, right? So people like that end up never accomplishing, because the truth is the planets are never in perfect alignment and nothing is ever perfect. So life is all about, on one hand, figuring out where you want to get to and figuring out how to advance your life in that direction, but recognizing that until it gets there, I accept my circumstances b'simcha, because that's what enables me ultimately to maximize them. He goes on, he says, the person should recognize that for everything good that I want out of life, so hopefully it'll happen. It just has to happen at the correct time. La'adam za'anu omrim. Goes to the second paragraph, page Tzadik Tes. To this person we say, so you say to this person, right, this individual who wants life change, who wants ultimately things to be different, who wants to change around his life, we say, wonderful. If there are things that you could do, change in your life, do it. Do it. And do it now. But if you see in life, if I see in life that right now, I can't change this. I can't change this. As tamin shemishamayim rotzim shametzias shalchatiyakach. Then ultimately, again, believe that from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately, again, the Metzias, the Rosh wants your circumstances like this. Zutavascha le'is ata. This is beneficial for you for now. Va'ata tzarech lekabel asakol bi'ahava. And you have to accept it in Bava. So I'll tell you something amazing. Just a very, very, very simple mashal. Mashal ma'adavar doma, which is, I had this list to give a shir in New York on Sunday morning. And I sat in probably 6.5 hours, 6 hours of traffic coming back. And literally I felt like I was in Gehenna. Like that feeling, 1 hour is, and by the way, it's like in the worst parts of like humanity, like the Belt Parkway, you just like, there's nowhere to go. There's just nothing to do on Belt parking lots, right? You just sit, and literally, like, I felt like life was passing me by. I felt like I was aging, sitting there, and I was so angry at myself. And so what ends up happening? See, get home after 6 hours of traffic, and literally, I was just a ball of stress. I felt it. I was like, right. So I had a couple of times, but meaning, and I realized afterwards, it's so foolish. Meaning, so I got myself all worked up over this because it's upsetting. You feel like literally it was a day. It was 6 hours. 6 hours just sitting. You can only make so many phone calls. And to be honest, I started calling, third cousins. Hey, how are you? haven't spoken to you in a couple of years. There's only so much. And yes, when you're stuck in child, there's only so many shurim. I'm sorry, I'm gonna admit, there's only so many shurim you can listen to also. So so I realized afterwards. So I made the wrong decision, meaning that I was upset because these circumstances weren't. And this is a very, 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 Kleinerkeit. This is a nothing. But you make a decision, and the decision is these are not the circumstances I want. This is ridiculous. I'd rather do anything anywhere than this. So you could rage against it, you could fight against it, and it does nothing. And it does absolutely nothing. As opposed to had I just accepted it. So listen, obviously, for whatever the reason, the Rebbe wants me to be in 6 hours of traffic. That's what he wants. I don't know the tachlis in it. Maybe it's a kapara. Maybe he needs me to have time to think about certain things. I don't know what it is. But if I failed at this. If I was mekabel it, A, I probably would have utilized the time much better, and B, it wouldn't have totally derailed the rest of my evening also, because I just I couldn't get out of it. It was such my kishkas were knots. So it's just, this is what the Mechaber is saying. I knew I needed something to change, but I couldn't change it in that moment. For those 6 hours, that was it. I could not change it. So I made the mistake of getting upset and raging against it, as opposed to saying, okay, it's going to change. I know. Here's what I know. At some point in time, the traffic is going to stop. Maybe it's going to be Tuesday. But I know at some point in time, it's going to let up. So what do I do with this now? How do I maximize this now? This with the emotional. And again, I will say, if we adopt that approach to life, obviously, this is a very, very small issue. But if you take this model, just life becomes fundamentally different. He goes on, he says, if I see now that I can't change anything, accept it with love. So again, says the Mechaber that in other words, you don't have to give up on the things you want in life. You don't have to give up on the places you want to get to in life. However, for now, accept your reality b'simcha. He goes on, and daven every day. Set aside time each and every day to daven to the one who does have the ability to help you affect change in your life, i.e. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to ask for the change that indeed you want. So we'll say the examples he was giving up until now were really all in material matters. But he says the same thing is true in Ruchnius as well. Kasher Adam, this is actually very profound. Kasher Adam rotze lilmod yoser. Person wants to learn more. I want to improve myself. Ve'inu yachol, and we'll say for some reason I can't. Now this is a dangerous I can't, right? Meaning sometimes there are legitimate circumstances that prevent me from doing the ruchni things that I want to. Meaning a person has to be careful with this, because sometimes we like to think that there are circumstances that prevent us, but they don't really prevent us. But let's say a person has legitimate circumstances that ultimately are holding him back. The Gemara says, or a person wants to fix a particularly negative character trait, or a person wants to leave a bitter desire, something that really derails me in life. I will say, ultimately, again, I'm not yet successful in getting through it. Person has to keep trying to do whatever I can to go ahead and change the midah, to go ahead and try to overcome ultimately again the taiva. However, again, and ultimately again to learn how to fix this character trait, and ultimately to dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu for helping overcoming it. I will say it's a very profound statement. But until that change occurs, I have to accept this is my reality. These are my struggles. In Meretz Hashem, one day I will overcome them. I'm working on them. I'm asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu and helping overcome. But right now, these are my struggles. This is my reality. He goes on. He says, "Yikabal samitzil shel ba'ava zeg gam kin yakel av ma'od v'gam yitzantzim es hanizakim shel osam chasaros opagam sheishla." If I'm able to do this, first of all, it lightens the burden, it lightens the load a little bit, and allows me ultimately to be functional in life, as opposed to if I recognize my faults and become overwhelmed by the Yitzhara, by the typhus that I have. And I can't change it right now. I can't change it this second, or I can't affect full change in this moment. It could derail me in life because I'm so overwhelmed by the guilt, by the shame, by the sadness of this is where I am. But if I say to myself, I'm working to change this, I'm doing my part, Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to help me along, but I also recognize that change is not going to occur in a moment. Therefore, I find the way to ultimately accept my current circumstances, bi'ava. I find the way to maximize them. And when I maximize them, they serve as the platform for future growth. So we'll stop over. We'll pick up in Meretz Hashem, last paragraph on page Tzadik Tes, in Meretz Hashem tomorrow.
You sure go.
All right, we'll say good morning. Let's begin. A beautiful daf Gemara ahead of us today. Today's daf is Kuf Nun Zayin 157. We are picking up at the Mishnah Kuf Nun Vav 156b. It says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, B'Shabbos Dvar K'Hem She'en Yachol Lichtov. So we'll see. We're going on now with the same machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Elazar, and the Chachamim regarding the nature of the ability of a shchid meirah to go ahead and convey. Actually, last Mishnah was Rabbi Elazar, this Mishnah is Rabbi Eliezer. So the idea being, Rabbi Eliezer says that Shabbos, if a shchid meirah wants to convey property, wants to convey a gift on Shabbos, so Dvar Kayom, his words work. In other words, the conveyance works, even though nothing is being put in writing. Why? Because also since on Shabbos there is an inability to commit things to writing, therefore again the verbal conveyance of the shchid meirah works. Avalo b'chol. But Rabbi Eliezer, same opinion essentially as Rabbi Elazar in the previous Mishnah, namely that what? Namely that a shchid meirah does not have conveyatory abilities than a bari, than a person who is healthy. Therefore, just as a bari has to employ a regular kinyan mechanism, a shchid meirah has to do so as well. Rabbi Eliezer is just saying that on Shabbos, because you can't write, we allow him to use a verbal conveyance. Rabbi Yeshua says, B'Shabbos amru, kal v'char b'char. Yeshua says, no, the shchid meirah can do it on Shabbos, and kal v'chomer, he could do it during the week as well. Kiyotzebo, similarly, Rabbi Eliezer says you could acquire a gift or property, for that matter, on behalf of a katan, but not on behalf of a gadol. And Rabbi Eliezer's logic, I will say, is what? Is that halacha l'maisa, since a katan can't acquire on behalf of himself, therefore what you could acquire on his behalf. Rabbi Yeshua says, the katan amru, you could acquire on behalf of a katan, kal v'chomer the gadol. And Rabbi will say, kal v'chomer that you could acquire on behalf of a gadol. Ultimately, Rabbi Yeshua speaking about the idea of zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav, that you have the ability to go ahead and acquire for someone, even without their knowledge or not in their presence, if that which you are acquiring on behalf of the individual is of an objective benefit. So Rabbi Yeshua says, if you could do it for a katan, you certainly could do it for a gadol. Says the Gemara, masnisin money. So I'll say, whose opinion does our Mishnah reflect? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Huda Disanya, Rabbi Meir Omer, have two versions in the machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. So Rabbi Meir says this is his version. So Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, b'chol dvarav kayamin, emnei sheyachol lichtov avalo b'Shabbos. Rabbi Meir says that ultimately, again during the week, the gift of a shchid meirah ultimately will be upheld. Why? Because he has the ability to write. However, not on Shabbos. Rabbi Yeshua says, Top of Kof Nun Zayin. The Chol Amru, no, Shemira has the ability to go ahead and what? To convey property of Osai even verbally, and certainly the Kavachomer the Shabbos. And all the more so if it works during the week, when technically speaking, a person could to writing, all the more so that it works on Shabbos. Kiyotsebo, similarly, Zachin Lagadol being Zachin Lakatan. Ultimately, again, you could acquire on behalf of an adult, but you can't acquire on behalf of a child. Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, Begadol Amru Kavachomer Lakatan. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, if you could acquire on behalf of a gadol, you certainly could acquire on behalf of a gadol. Also, the nature of that Kavachomer is such, acquire on behalf of a gadol who technically has the ability to acquire on behalf of his own, on his own behalf, so you could acquire on a katan who does not have the ability to acquire on his behalf. We'll say, so that is Rabbi Meir's version of the machlokes. Comes along Rabbi Huda. We'll say Kufnun Zayin Awad Aleph, 4 lines down. Rabbi Huda says, Rabbi Huda Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, B'Shabbos Dvarav Kiyomim, Mepeshu Yachal Lichtov. Rabbi Huda's also Rabbi Huda's version. Rabbi Eliezer says that on Shabbos, if the Shemira conveys property, that conveyance, verbally, that conveyance is effective. Why? Because he doesn't have the ability to use another kinyan mechanism. You can't do it through writing. Avalo b'chol. But I will say ultimately, again, a Shemira only has this ability on Shabbos when ksiva is not available to him. But when writing is available to him, like during the week, ultimately, again, he cannot rely on the verbal conveyance. Rabbi Yeshua says, "B'Shabbos Amru Kabachor B'Chol." Rabbi Yeshua says, no, just the opposite. If it works on Shabbos, of course it works during the week as well. In other words, if we're going to let him convey property on Shabbos, ultimately we understand this. This is because of Tiruf Hadas. We know that if we're nervous, that if we don't let the Shemira convey things as he wants to, then what's going to happen? He's going to become a bulbal, right? He's going to get upset. He's not going to have that inner quiet. We don't want to cause that. So if we're allowing him already to do this on Shabbos, he certainly could convey even without writing during the week as well. So the Gemara says, Kiyotzebo, similarly, Zachin Lakatan, Ve'in Zachin Lagadol Divi Rabbi Eliezer. Similarly, you could acquire on behalf of a katan, but not on behalf of a gadol. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, "Lekatan amru kavachomer legadol." Rabbi Yeshua says, no, if you could acquire on behalf of a katan, you certainly could acquire on behalf of a gadol. So both say, just to kind of close out these sugyas. So first of all, again, how do we pass in terms of a matna shemira? So this is in the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat. In Siman Reish Nun Sif Aleph writes, matna shemira ein tzarich laknosa b'shum echad medarchei akna shedivrei shemira keksuvin v'chimsurin dama. So we'll say we don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Eliezer of the previous Mishnayos. Rather, the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins is that a matna shemira, a deathbed gift. Now, again, subject to all of the different criteria that we've been learning up until this point in time, but a matna shemira does not need to be conveyed with any of the normative kinyan mechanisms. Rather, again, even if the shemira simply verbally transmits an instruction to transfer property, that's kiksuvin v'chimsurin damu. That is as good as having it written in ishtar. Again, subject to all of the criteria of what makes a matna shemira, as we've learned before. That's number one. Number two, just to close out this last sugya, Shulchan Aruch paskins, this is in Reish Mem Gimel Sif Yud Ches, Zochin lakatan afilu yom echad ulegadol bein b'fanav bein shel b'fanav. Both say the concept of Zochin la'adam shelo b'fanav, that you could acquire something on someone's behalf, even not in their presence or without their knowledge, applies to both kitanim and gidolim equally. So you could acquire on behalf of a fellow adult. Again, it has to be an objective schus, an objective benefit. And you could also acquire on behalf of a child of any age. Good. Says the Gemara. Let's go. Mishnah. New Mishnah. We'll say this is actually a very interesting case. Nafal habayis alav va'al aviv. So we'll say, see, here's the case. Ruvain. Actually, if you take a look at the Rashbam, it's the top Rashbam on the page. Nafal habayis alav va'al aviv. Al Ruvain va'al Yaakov aviv. Ve'en yodea mi meis kodem. We'll see this interesting case. So what happens? It's interesting for us, but I'm saying, Reuben and Yaakov are father and son. I should say Yaakov and Reuben. Yaakov and Reuben are in the house together. The house collapses on them. They both die. The shaila is who died first. Now, also, now you understand, just from a Yerusha perspective, that is a very, very, very important question. Assuming over here that Reuben is not married, has no children. So also in a case like that, if Reuven were to die, if Reuven were to predecease his father, his estate would go to his father. If the father predeceased Reuven, then at least some part of the father, assuming if there are other siblings, at least some part of the estate ultimately would go to Reuven. So the question over here, so we don't know who died in this situation first, therefore we don't know which way the flow of inheritance is going. So it says in Mishnah, Nafa Habayik Salav Alav, the house falls on Yaakov the father and Reuven the son. Oh, Alav Va'amorisha. But I will say, this doesn't have to be father and son. This is any two people who inherit each other. So we're just using father and son because it's easy. But it's any two people who inherit each other. And I will say, watch what happens over here. So the Gemara says, V'haise Alav Ksuvas Isha Ubalchov. And I will say, now in this case over here, let's say Reuven, well, I said he wasn't married, but you could set up as married. Let's say when Reuven dies, Reuven's the son. So when Reuven dies, he has certain debts that are outstanding. He has a wife to whom he owes a ksuba, or he borrowed money. So he has creditors to whom he owes money. So watch this, I will say. So Yershe Ha'av Omrim Habein Meis Rishon Va'achar Kach Meisav. So I will say, those who stand to inherit the father, the son Reuven died before Yaakov. The son Reuven died before Yaakov, and therefore what? And therefore the father inherits the son, and therefore again the property of Reuven ultimately is divided up amongst the heirs of the father. Reuven's creditors, what do they say? Ha'av meis rishon va'achar kach meis habein. Now, the creditors of Reuven, the deceased son, say, no. Yaakov died first, because you both say, remember, you know where this comes up. We're going to see this in the Gemara. Where this comes up is, let's say Reuven himself doesn't have any property, meaning before the house incident, Reuven had no property. So the creditors have been after him for a while, but he has no property. Now, I will say, if you say that Yaakov, the father, died first, and then Reuven died first, then what? Reuven does have property because he's an inheritor. So the inheritors of the father, their interest is in claiming that Reuven, the son, died first, and therefore was inherited by the father, and therefore they inherit the father. The creditors of the son have a stake out the position that the father died first, Reuven inherited him, and now we have the right to seize those assets to satisfy our debt. So the Gemara says the following. So what do we do? I will say, so again, obviously, if you can prove your claim, you prove your claim. But what do you do in this kind of situation where you can't prove your claim? What happens then? So Beis Shammai Omrim Yachloku. Beis Shammai says you split the amount. Look at the Rashbam for just a moment now. What does splitting mean? The Rashbam says Beis Shammai Yachloku. Kid Mefarshim B'Yivam Mispach Holitz. Ta'afa Gav the Yarsheh Av Vaday Yarshin B'Hai Mamon Ubalchov Safek V'Kaasi Safek Umotzi Midei Vaday Kasari Beis Shammai Shtar HaOmed Ligvos Kigavos Dami. Beis Shammai is of the opinion that when you hold a note for collection, so that gives you a power as a first position, not just a first position, you're a vadai. You have a strong entitlement. So according to Beis Shammai, that strong entitlement ultimately again entitles you to at least 50% of the money. On the other hand, Beis Hillel Omrim Nechasim Becheskasan. Beis Hillel says Chazaka. In other words, we'll say, what does Chazaka say? Chazaka says that the father's property remains with the father, and Reuven's property remains with with Reuven, and ultimately, again, neither inherits the other. Look at the Rashbam for Shizma Beis Hillel saying the Chasim Becheskas Yarshe'av. So the father's property remains with the father, so to speak, and therefore is inherited by those who stand in line to inherit the father. Sha'arihem Yarshim Vadai. Omi Yaakov, Omi Reuven, Muchzakim Damu, Shayakov Muchzak Benechasav Haya, Ve'elu Ba'im Mikocho Balchov Savik, Ve'in Savik Motzi Midei Vadei. So both sides. See, interestingly enough, you have Machlokes Beis Shammai. So Beis Shammai says split the money, meaning just split it. And again, Beis Shammai's logic will also be it's Maman Hamutul B'Safek. We don't know what to do, and therefore Yachloku, you split it. Beis Hillel says no, you don't split it. Ha'emid Mamon Al Chazkaso. Keep the money where it's known to have the chazak of ownership. In this case, again, the chazak of ownership is where? Is with the yarshim of the father. Keep it there. Says the Gemara, Tanan Hasam. We'll say, so this is, as you could imagine, is really a fascinating case that has many different ramifications. So Tanan Hasam. Hamaves Chavero Bishtar, Gova Menechasim Mishubadim. So let's listen to this. I lend Reuven money, and I record the loan in a shtar. So I lend him $10,000. And it's recorded in a document. We'll say, what's the halacha? As a result, I have the right then, when it comes to repayment of the loan, to collect from encumbered property. So we'll say what that means is the moment I lend him in a document, that creates an encumbrance on his property, which means what? That even if he sells off his property after the time of the loan, if he doesn't have money to repay the loan, then what? Then I have the ability to seize property from some of the people who he sold from in satisfaction of my debt. However, al yidei eidin, let's say I lent money to Ruvain. I didn't record it in a document, but I did go ahead and lent him money in front of witnesses. The kids of Shulchan Aruch paskins that you are not allowed to lend money to someone without witnesses. And the kids are paskins. He says if you lend money to someone without witnesses, you are in violation of lifnei ivar lo sitin mirshal. You are placing a stumbling block in front of someone. Why? Because we'll say if I lend money to someone without witnesses, I'm setting them up for the ability to what? To deny that the loan ever occurred. And guess what? There's no way for me to prove otherwise. There's no document, there's anything. For the kids are mamish paskins, you're not supposed to lend money to someone without witnesses. Incredible yesod. So says the Imar. So however, therefore, if you just lend in front of witnesses, because there's no shtar, therefore, again, your ability to collect is limited to unencumbered properties. Bo'i Shmuel. So we'll say, listen to this case. And this question is going to be, what kind of is this? We're going to be exploring this for the rest of today's daf. Bo'i Shmuel. Di'ikni. We'll say, let's say again, the following situation comes up. Di'ikni. Look at the Rashbam for just a moment. It's Rashbam Bo'i Shmuel. It's 2, 4, 6, 8 lines up from before I get to it. Bo'i Shmuel. Hakosiv lechavero mishabet ani lecha bechovech kol mechasim she'ekna mahu v'aynu shekosim b'shtaros dikanoi u'da'asa al lemikne. So listen to this. So I lend money to Ruvain, and Ruvain writes in the shtar, listen, not only is the property that I have encumbered, but anything that I will ever acquire will also become encumbered to this debt. So Shmuel asks, if he writes this in the shtar, the anything I will acquire will become encumbered, vikana. And then he ultimately, Ruvain, the borrower, does ultimately purchase more property. Does the encumbrance actually devolve upon the newly acquired property or not? And I will say, as we're going to see, the bigger question is the following. The bigger question is, let's say I lend Ruvain money today, Wednesday, and he writes in the shtar, any property that I ever will acquire will become encumbered to this debt. A month from now, that's not due for 6 months. A month from now, he purchases property, but then he sells it off. Comes time for the debt to be due, or the debt is due. He doesn't have any property to his name. Can I go ahead and collect that property from the person who purchased it, even though, again, that property was not in Ruvain's possession at the time of the actual transaction or not? So the Gemara says, what's the halacha? So according to Rabbi Meir, so what's according to Rabbi Meir, who says that a person has the ability to go ahead and acquire, or for that matter, transact business with something that does not yet exist, then this case should work. Now I'm going to say, if you look at the Rashbam for just a moment, it's the last 2 short lines. Aliba de Rabbi Meir, Kabe ha'omer le'isha, hari'at mikudashas l'chishiyamos ishech. I will say it's an interesting case. A man goes over to a woman and he says, become mikudashas to me when your husband dies. So what happens? Shabbos say, or become mikudashas to me, when you convert. Right now, she's not Jewish. When you convert, Rabbi Meir holds, we'll say that these cases work, even though, again, in these situations, there is a davar shalom bali olam. There's something that does not yet exist. So we'll say, so according to Rabbi Meir, who says that you could create halachic realities, even if something does not yet exist, so this would work. You could create, I will say, an encumbrance upon future acquired property. So I'll say, where does the shaila come up? Aliba de Rabbanan. So I'll say the shaila is really on the Rabbanan who hold that a person cannot acquire something that or convey ownership of something that does not yet exist. So I'll say, according to the Rabbanan, the shaila will be, can you go ahead and make such a stipulation, and would it work? In other words, can you make a stipulation that says, Reuven says, silver, I'm borrowing money from you, and but anything I ever will acquire, di'ikni, anything I will ever acquire ultimately will become encumbered to this debt. Does that work? See, I will say, Reuven is making a t'nai on things that do not yet exist. So the fundamental shayla the Gemara is asking is, can you create a halachic reality with things that do not yet exist. Now we know that there is an opinion that says yes. That opinion is Rabbi Meir, right? So Rabbi Meir is the one who says that you can mekadesh woman who's right now non-Jewish on the condition that she becomes Jewish. The same way that according to Rabbi Meir, you could sell. Also, we had this case a few days ago. Peros dekel. You can go ahead and sell the future dates of the palm tree, even though again the dates do not yet exist. Our shayla is not according to Rabbi Meir. Our shayla is according to the Chachamim. Does this work? So Amar Rav Yosef says Tashma. So let's analyze this. Tashma. The Chachamim omrim zehaya pikeach shemach alo es hakarka mipnei shuyachal lemashkelav. So we'll say, okay, what's this case? Take a look at the Rashbam. Amar Rav Yosef Tashma. We'll say it's the last of the intermediate lines. There's the short lines, the intermediate lines, and the wide lines. This is the last of the intermediate lines. Amar Rav Yosef Tashma. Listen to this case. This nan beperek shnei dayane. Gzeros b'ksulas. Hamotzi shtarchal b'charev. Let's listen to this case. I go ahead, I show up in Beis Din, and I produce a loan document that says Reuven owes me $5,000. What happens? V'halo hotzi shtar shekasu bo shemachar lo hasasadem al v'lova. So we'll say what happens. I bring this shtar to Beis Din. Reuven claims that he already paid me back. So again, we'll say the obvious problem with Reuven's claim is what? Is that I, the creditor, am holding the note. I'm holding the shtar. Now, generally, again, the way it works is creditor holds the document until when? Until the loan is repaid. Then ultimately, either he gives it to the borrower or it's torn up. So I'm coming to Beis Din saying, Reuven, you owe me $5,000. Here's the shtar. Reuven says, no, I paid you back already. How does Reuven prove it's going to? So listen to this. Reuven produces another document, and this document says that Reuven sold me property. So, I'm sorry. That I, the creditor, sold Reuven a piece of property. Sold a piece of property. Let's say, for argument's sake, the piece of property happened to have been worth $5,000. So Reuven produces a shtar that says, Silver, my creditor, sold me a piece of property for $5,000. After shnichtav shtar chofu, shumot sialov, admon omer yochol halov liton, ilu chayev hayisi lecha, ilu chayev hayisi lecha, hayalecha lefro eshach mimeni v'lo hayalecha limkar likarka b'shel tzorech mo. So we'll listen to this. So Admon, one of the opinions of the Second Ksuva says that when Reuven produces this shtar that I sold him property, that is a raya that the debt is repaid. Why? Because if the debt wasn't repaid, then what could I have done? I could have received the purchase price for the land of $5,000 and said, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm not selling you the land anymore. Rather, again, I'll just keep this money as repayment for the note. The fact that I sold him the property, Admon says, is a raya. That's what? That Reuven went ahead and, in fact, paid back the debt. So let's say that's the opinion of Admon. The Chachamim, on the other hand, say, to the Gemara just moment. The Chachamim no, the Chachamim say it's not a raya that the note is repaid. Rather, we assume that the lender is just a very good businessman. It's a very shrewd individual. Why? So we'll say here's the chap. Because here's what I can do. If I sell that piece of land to Reuven, what I could say to Reuven is, where Reuven can say is the following: when the note becomes due, and Reuven claims that what? He has no money. I now know for a fact that that is not true. How do I know that it's not true? Because I sold him a piece of property. So it's like I have the ability to essentially collateralize the piece of property that I sold him. And in the event that he does not have money to pay me back, I know the exact parcel that I can seize in satisfaction of my debt. So says the Gemara, so we'll say, so understand, why is the Gemara bringing down this case? The Rashbam brings down the Dirah Master of the Chumram. The Chum say, look at the second line of that Rashbam. So we'll say, see here this case? In this case over here, I lent Reuven $5,000. Then what happens? I claim Reuven still owes me the money. Reuven says, I paid you back. And the raya is, you sold me property. If I really owed you money, why would you sell me property if I still had an outstanding debt to you? To which I could come back and claim, I sold you property to know that you would have the ability to go ahead and pay me back. Because this way, again, should you not have any money at the time that the note becomes due, I now know that you have an asset that I could seize in satisfaction of my debt. Now, both sides, that asset, that piece of property, did not exist at the time of the loan. Reuven, the borrower, did not own it at the time of the loan. Yeah, what do we see? We see that the encumbrance of the debt devolves upon that piece of property, even though it only came onto the scene later on. Based on that, we are tempted to say that when a borrower says di'ikni, anything I will acquire will become encumbered by the debt. Such a statement like that does in fact work. Amalei Rava says no. Minei Kamret tried to bring a riot from this case. So the Gemara says, Minei afilu min galima da kasvi. So we'll say the Gemara says, when you're talking about collecting from the borrower himself, then it goes without saying that a creditor has the ability to collect from any of the borrower's assets. Whether the borrower owned those assets at the time of the debt or not, that doesn't matter. What matters is what the borrower owns at the time when the debt is due. So whatever he owns at the time when the debt is due, that the creditor has the ability to collect from. Our shaila, Rabosai, is a more complicated one. Our shaila is the ikni, where the borrower says any property that I will acquire will become encumbered to this debt. Kana, he then acquires property. Umachar, and he sells it off. The shaila is then, do I, the creditor, have the right to go to that purchaser and seize that property in satisfaction of the debt? Or the ikni, where the borrower says any property that I will acquire. Kana, he then acquires property. V'horish, and then let's say he dies and it's inherited by his inheritors. Do I, the creditor, have the right to go after that money? We'll say that's our shaila. So Amar Rav Chana. Tashma, so Rav Chana will say brought from our Mishnah. Tashma. Nafal habayis alav va'al aviv amarishav v'haisik suvas v'haisalav suvas hishul balchov. So we'll say just quote from our Mishnah. So what happens? Yaakov and Reuben, father and son, in the house together. The house falls down on them. They both die. We're not sure of the order. What happens? Reuben, when he dies, has certain outstanding debts. Right? He ultimately owes ksuva, or he has other chovos upon him. So what happens? Yarsha'av omrim habein meis rishon rachach meisav. So let's say to those who inherit the father's inheritors, their position is son died first, and then father died, and then father died. Therefore, again, father inherited the son. The assets are ours. So the Gemara subali chovos omrim. But again, the son's creditors say ha'av meis rishon. Ultimately, what the father died first. Son inherited him, and now we could seize those assets to satisfy our debts. It says the Gemara, de ikni kana umachar, de ikni kana v'horish lo mishtabed. So we'll say if you hold that what? That halacha l'maisa, when someone does not own property at the time of the debt, but they go ahead and they say anything that I will acquire ultimately will become encumbered by this debt. They then acquire property, sell off that property, that the encumbrance is no longer upon that. Lo mishtabit, nihi nami da'av meis bereisha. Even if you say the father died first, the ikni hu. So the Gemara says this would be a case of a son, of in this case the debtor, the son who inherited property or who acquired property after the time of the transaction. So if you'll both say that there could be no encumbrance that devolves upon property not owned at the time of the transaction, even if it's true that the father died first, so the son inherited him, the creditors of the son should have no claim against this newly acquired property. To which the Gemara says, Amadu Rav Nachman Zira Chavrin, excuse me, Amadu, he said to him, Rav Nachman Zira, our friend, Tirgama, explain this in the following dynamic. Mitzvah al Yisomim lifroa chovos avihem. Both say this is a different case. The case of here, I will say where it is. If you have a case, even if you hold that a future encumbrance does not devolve upon, I should say, an encumbrance does not devolve upon property acquired after the date of the transaction, there's a different operative principle at play over here, which is that there is a mitzvah upon the inheritors to pay off the debts of the deceased. Look at the Rashman for just a moment. 4 lines up from the bottom, last 2 words on mitzvah, last 2 words. Mitzvah yisomim, v'lo mishum shekasav lo deiknihu, degabi kana, u'machar lo mishtabed, elagabe yarshim mishum mitzvah, v'afi lo kasav lo deikni mishtabed yoresh l'malva mishum mitzvah yisomim. Both say what the Gemara now is introducing us to is something dramatically different, which is, it does not matter what is written in the shtar. It doesn't matter what's written in the shtar. There is a mitzvah upon yisomim, and both say yisomim doesn't just mean children of the deceased. Anyone who inherits the deceased, it is a mitzvah ultimately again to repay the debt to the deceased. So both say it's an incredible yisod, just also on in a more esoteric level that brought down that the neshama itself doesn't have rest until its chovos are paid off, until all of its debts in this world are paid off. So therefore, again, there's a din of ultimately those who inherit the deceased of paying off the debts of the deceased. So because there is another operative principle over here, that's independent ultimately of what? That's independent of the ikni of future encumbrances. The reason ultimately why the inheritors of the son are going to, in this case, the inheritors of Reuben are going to pay off those debts is because it's a mitzvah lifra chovos aviyim. So Mar says, Maskiv Ravashi, Mal va'alpehu. So Ravashi says, 1 second. If that's the case, then this should be a situation of Oseh. Then this is no different than a milva alpeh. A milva Oseh means just a verbal transaction. And what? And the Gemara says, V'ravu shol milva alpeh and a government a yershin. So ultimately, Rabbi Shul both say that a verbal transaction, as we stated before, is not collectible from inheritors. A verbal transaction, I will say, is only collectible from the creditor, from the debtor himself, not from his yarshim. Take a quick look at the Rashbam. The Rashbam says over here, "Ha Rav Shmuel during Tarvayu, like come on to get pashut, milva alpeh and a government yarshim. V'chiyamina mitzvah yisomim, hani mili milva b'shtar." They both say, when do we say that there's a mitzvah upon the yisomim to go ahead and what? To go ahead and pay off the debts of their father? That's when that debt was recorded in a document. But if this was a milva alpeh, then at the end of the day, they're not obligated to pay off the debts of the estate. I'm a base. Ella Hamani. So I'll say, whose opinion does this reflect? Rabbi Meir. So I'll say, we keep coming back to the same thing, which is whose opinion is being reflected over here? Rabbi Meir. So I'll say, it appears that what we keep coming back to in these situations is that halacha l'maisa, the dominant opinion that is being expressed over here is Rabbi Meir, who holds that a person could go ahead and be makne a davar shalav ali olam. Person could go ahead and convey something that does not yet exist. Gemara goes weiter. Amar Rabbi Yaakov minar pekod meshvei de Ravina. So Rabbi Yaakov of Nar Pekod said to Ravina. Nar Pekod is a place, the Pekod River. Tashma. So let's remember, just so you understand, we're still trying to answer the same basic question, which is, if I lend money to Reuven, and Reuven says anything, obviously everyone knows that whatever Reuven owns at the time of the transaction is encumbered by the debt. The shaila over here is where Reuven puts in an additional clause in the shtar. The additional clause in the shtar is one word, which is the ikni. Anything that I will acquire will become encumbered by this debt. And we'll say, what's our shaila? Let's say Reuven then 6 months later, before the debt is due, acquires new property, and then what? Subsequently sells off that property. Now when the time for collection comes along, Reuven has no property to his name. Isn't it? Because obviously if Reuven has property to his name, that's where I collect from. He's got nothing to his name. The shaila now is, can I collect the property, right, can I collect the sold property? But again, that was property that was sold that was not owned by the borrower at the time of the debt. It was purchased at a later date, but the borrower himself made the stipulation, the ikni, that anything I will acquire ultimately will become encumbered. So we'll say, so the point that Gemara is making over here is, does a borrower have the ability to create a future encumbrance upon property that he does not yet own? That's the fundamental shaila. And I will say again, so the answer is very simple according to Rabbi Meir. If you're Rabbi Meir and you hold that that you could stipulate and you could transact with things that do not yet exist, it's open and shut. Yes, you can do it. Our shaila will say is not according to that opinion. So the Gemara goes weiter. Tashma. This is actually a very interesting case as well. Shtar chov muktam. We'll say, what's the shtar chov muktam? Predated shtar. So let's say again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lend Reuven. It's the 5th of Tammuz, and I'm going to go ahead and lend Reuven money. But I decide, you know what? I'm a big Rosh Chodesh fan, so I decide, you know what? Instead of dating it 4th of Tammuz, so I'm going to go ahead and date it Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. But say such a shtar is possible. Why is it shtar possible? We'll say, why is it shtar muktam possible? A shtar muktam is possible because we'll say, remember again, an encumbrance upon property is created as of the date in the shtar. So we'll say, so for argument's sake, if the date in the shtar is Rosh Chodesh, but I don't end up lending Reuven money till the 4th of Tammuz, the encumbrance is not there until the 4th of Tammuz. When it comes time for collection, there was property that Reuven sold off before the 4th of Tammuz. That was really not encumbered property. But the shtar says that the transaction took place on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, then technically I, the creditor, could seize property from transactions that were made before the date of the actual loan, and I can illegally seize property from people who bought unencumbered properties. So therefore, Rabbi say because of that, shtar mukdam. So you should know, by the way, where does this come up? Where does this come up? This comes up often by ksuvas, right? Sometimes, again, it's not as much this time of year, but sometimes like winter months where the day is shorter and people make a chasana. So sometimes you have to be careful. Again, our minhag here is that we fill out the ksuba during the chasnas tish. The ksuba, the chuppah could be sometime later on. So there are many posting that are makbid that the date of the ksuba has to match the date of the chuppah. That's why amazing enough minhag Yerushalayim is that they go ahead and they do the ksuba underneath the chuppah. They do it underneath the chuppah. So to avoid any issues in terms of dating of the ksuba, it's interesting. Okay, so that's the shtar mukdam. However, Rabbi say if you want to post date a shtar, if you want to post date a shtar, so you have the right to do that. Rabbi say because who is the only person who is disadvantaged by a post dated shtar? Who's the only person? The creditor, right? The lender. Because Rabbi say his encumbrance then is pushed off. If he wants to assume that risk, that's absolutely fine. Take a look at the Rashbam. This is an extreme case, right? Let's say the loan took place in Nisan, but they don't want to date the shtar until Tishrei. So again, if the lender is willing to go ahead and let this go, then that's his prerogative. So the Gemara says, if you want to say that ultimately, again, a future encumbrance works, that when the borrower says anything that I will acquire ultimately becomes encumbered to this debt, if you want to say that works, the ikni kana umahar, the ikni kana vahorish lo mishtabid. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. If you want to say that when he makes a future encumbrance and then ultimately purchases the property, sells off the property, purchases the property, dies, and bequeaths the property, if you want to say that that does not create a shibud, then me'ucharin amai ksherin. Then Rabbi say, why should a shtar me'uchar be okay? Take a look at the Rashbam. Me'ucharin amai ksherin. Kishalava b'nisan v'nichtam b'tishrei v'alo shema kana zeh elu nechasim bein nisan l'tishrei v'lo shtabdu l'malveh. The ikni hu b'shas hava. So we'll say again, if you want to say that the ikni does not create a real shibud, then a shtar me'uchar, a post-dated shtar, will say should not be good. To which the Gemara says again, ha money. Whose opinion does this reflect? So we'll say again, we keep coming back to the same thing, which is these brisos are reflective of the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who holds that you can go ahead and transact business with something that does not yet exist. Tashma. We'll say, what is the case where you could collect for land improvements? So what's the case? Watch this. We'll say, I sell a field to Ruvain. I sell a field to Ruvain, and Ruvain improves the field. And we'll say, what happens? I subsequently had borrowed money from someone. I borrowed money from Shimon. And what happens? Time to pay the debt. The time to pay the debt comes along. I don't have any money. So what happens? I will say, I don't have any money. So Shimon, my creditor, does what? Comes to Ruvain, the person who I sold the land to, and what? Seizes the property from him. Vitarfa. So we'll say, so remember again, now what's going to happen with Ruvain? What is Ruvain going to do now? What's his next course of action? He comes to me. He's coming to pay me a visit, right? I sold him the land. Now, again, he's going to say, make me whole, right? Give me back my money. Give me whatever he's going to say. Let's say Pasha is going to say, give me back my money. So what's the halacha say? Kishu gova. So when Reuben comes back to me, gova. So I'll say for the principal, in other words, for the money that he paid for the land, he has the right to collect that from me, even from other encumbered properties. Rabbi say, let's say any land improvements that I mean, because remember there are two pots over here. One pot or two amounts. One is that the purchase price is sold in the land for X amount of dollars. He has the right to get that back. That he could get back even from the chasim mishubadim, even from encumbered properties. The other piece I will say is the money he put into land improvements. He has the right to recapture that as well. However, he can only capture that from the chasim and echor, from unencumbered properties. And if you hold that when a person says any future encumbrance, anything I will acquire becomes encumbered, and then he acquires something and he sells it off, or the ikni kind of a horish, or again he makes that try of the ikni, he acquires something and then he dies and it's inherited. If you hold in those cases, Rabbi say lo mishtabit, that it does not create an encumbrance, then bal chov Amai go v'shivcha. Then ultimately, again, why should the Baal Chov ultimately be able, the Baal Chov, Rabbi say in this case, is Ruvain, the person who purchased the land, why should he be entitled to collect land improvements? Rabbi say at the end of the day, that was not in existence at the time of the transaction. To which the Gemara again says, Hamani, whose opinion does this reflect? Rabbi Meir, the Amar Adam Makne Davar Shalav Ali Olam. So say ultimately again reflects the Rabbi Meir, who says that you could transact with things that do not yet exist. Fine. So it says the Gemara, Intin Salomar, Di'ikni Kana Umachar, Di'ikni Kana Vahorish Lo Mishtabid, Halo Mishtabid. So we'll say the Gemara realizes that at this point in time, we have still not yet resolved this issue. We have one core question. I lend Reuven money. Reuven says, not only is the property I own encumbered, but anything I will ever own is encumbered. Reuven then subsequently, post the date of the transaction, goes and purchases new property. And what happens? He then subsequently sells it off. Time of the debt comes along. He's got no property to his name. Am I, the creditor, able to seize the property that was bought after the transaction date that Reuven said should be encumbered? Does that future encumbrance work or not? So the Gemara says, if you hold it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Imtim salomar mishtabit. But we'll say if you ultimately say that it does work, meaning if you hold that such a future encumbrance, the ikni, that a borrower can create a future encumbrance. He's ultimately again that he will buy in the future. If you hold that can be done, then I will say the Gemara asks an interesting follow-up question. Lava velava, v'chazar v'kana. Let's listen to this case. This case says, let's say again, Reuven goes out of and borrows money from two people, right? A and B. And for both A and B, he makes this same tonight of the ikni. Any properties I will ever acquire will be encumbered by this debt. Okay? And then what happens? He then acquires property. Mahu. They both say, now let's say again, so now he owes money to two people. There's one piece of land. Who has precedence? Who has precedence of collection? Mahu. Remember, this property was not in existence at the time of either of these transactions, either of these loans. But in both of these loans, Reuven, the borrower, said, anything that I ever will acquire will become encumbered to the debt. He says this to A, he says it to B. Let's say both debts become due at the same time and there's one piece of property. So we'll say, who gets it? So the Gemara says, Mahu. Does the first creditor get it or the second creditor get it? Amar Rav Nachman, ha milsai boilan. So Rav Nachman said, we dealt with this kasha a little bit, and they sent us from Eretz Yisrael. They told us the first guy acquires it. The first guy acquires it. Yachloku. Rav Huna says they should split it. They should split it. And I will say, split it doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. Hashbam points out over here that split it ultimately means proportionally split it. They split it in proportion to the amount of money that they're owed. Rabbi will also say, we'll stop over here for today. We're gonna end off in the middle of this shaila. So just know we're ending. Don't worry, it's a short half tomorrow. So we'll finish this up. But we'll say, just understand, we're leaving off in the middle of a major machlokes. The major machlokes is, can a borrower create future encumbrance? Borrower is borrowing money, and if he says the ikni, any property I will acquire, does that create a lien against this property or not? That's the fundamental shaila that we have over here. The ramifications of that is if he sells off that property, and does the creditor have the ability to go after that property? Now the Gemara is complicating it a bit more. Let's say he made this arrangement with multiple creditors, and at the end of the day, there's only one parcel of land for collection. Who gets that parcel? Amir Tashem answered both of those kashas. Amir Tashem tomorrow morning.